Eto guys, Japanese horror film. Panoorin natin. Nakakatakot to, creepy.
If you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it out of Japan. My name is Alex Thompson, and I've always been drawn to the eerie and unexplained. As a photographer, I've made it my mission to capture the world's most haunting locations and cryptic legends. That's what brought me to Japan, to document something I never believed I would experience firsthand. This will likely be my final message because I've come across something far more dangerous than I ever imagined. It all started when I received a tip from a local guide, Hiroshi, about an ancient legend hidden deep in the forests of Izu. The Jorogumo, the Binding Bride, a creature who lures men into her web and devours them. Hiroshi warned me against going, said the stories weren't just folklore, but something darker, something real. Of course, I laughed it off. A giant spider woman living near a waterfall. It sounded like a perfect photo op for my next exhibition. I had traveled to remote villages before, heard ghost stories spun by locals trying to scare tourists, but I never took them seriously. I thought this would be no different, but I was wrong. When I arrived in Izu, the atmosphere was tense, almost oppressive. The village was small, nestled in the mountains, with narrow streets and buildings that looked as if they'd been there for centuries. It was quiet, too quiet. Even in the middle of the day, I felt like something was watching me. I met Hiroshi at a local tea house. He was an older man, in his 60s, with deep lines etched into his face from years of hard living. He wasn't the usual type to tell ghost stories, which only made his account more unsettling. As we sat down, he leaned in close and whispered, "You shouldn't have come." I asked him to explain, and that's when he told me about the others, the men who had come before me. Tourists, researchers, even some locals. They had gone to the falls to see the Jorogumo, and none of them had returned. Hiroshi warned me that the falls were cursed, that the creature was real, and that I was putting myself in grave danger. But of course I brushed it off. I was there to document, to explore. What was the worst that could happen? Later that day, I decided to dig deeper. I wanted to hear more stories, so I visited a local shrine where I met an old woman named Yumi. She was well into her 70s, but her eyes were sharp and alert. She had lived in the village her entire life and claimed to know the truth about the Jorogumo. As I sat beside her, she told me a story that had been passed down through generations. The Jorogumo isn't just a spider, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She was once a beautiful woman, cursed for her vanity and greed. She lures men to the waterfall with her beauty, and once they fall under her spell, she reveals her true form. I asked if she had ever seen the Jorogumo herself. Yumi looked at me with a cold, unwavering gaze. I haven't, but my brother did. He went to the falls one evening to gather herbs and never came back. We found his body the next morning. He had been drained, like a husk. All that was left was his skin and bones. Her words sent a chill down my spine, but I pushed forward. After all, I'd come for proof, and no ghost story was going to stop me. The next morning, I set off for the Joran Falls with my camera gear. It was a beautiful hike, the path winding through the forest with the sound of birdsong in the air. The falls themselves were stunning, a torrent of water crashing down into a pool surrounded by moss-covered rocks. It felt serene, but there was an undercurrent of something darker. I spent the day taking photos, waiting for something, anything, that would hint at the supernatural. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the mood shifted. The birds stopped singing, and a heavy fog rolled in from the forest, blanketing everything in a thick, impenetrable mist. That's when I saw her.
White lady.
At first, it was subtle, a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned, and standing there just beyond the mist was a woman. She was beautiful, long black hair, pale skin, dressed in a flowing white kimono. She looked out of place, standing there alone at the edge of the falls. I raised my camera, but before I could snap a photo, she disappeared. My heart was pounding in my chest. I told myself it was nothing, just my mind playing tricks on me. But then, I heard something. A faint whisper. A voice, soft and melodic, calling my name.
Alex, I've been waiting for you.
I turned again, and there she was, standing closer this time, her face partially obscured by her hair. She didn't speak, just stared at me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. Fear, hunger. Then, I saw it. Behind her, the mist seemed to shift, and I realized it wasn't mist at all. It was webbing. Long, thin strands of spider silk glistening in the fading light. Before I could react, the ground beneath me shifted. I looked down and saw the webbing crawling up my legs, binding me in place. I struggled, but the more I moved, the tighter it became. Panic set in as I realized I couldn't break free. I fell to the ground, gasping for breath, my heart racing. I grabbed my camera and fled back to the village without looking back. When I reached the safety of the inn, I checked the photos on my camera. The woman was there, clear as day, standing by the falls. But in every shot, her face was different. Twisted, contorted, almost inhuman. In one photo, I could see the faint outline of her true form, her spider legs extending from her back, her mouth open in a silent scream. Despite the warnings, I couldn't leave. I was too deep, too obsessed. So on the third day, I returned to the falls one last time, hoping to capture the final piece of evidence. This time, the air was heavy with a sense of foreboding. As I approached the falls, the mist rolled in thicker than before, and the temperature dropped. She was waiting for me. The woman stood at the edge of the pool, her back to me. But as I stepped closer, she turned, and this time, there was no illusion. Her face was monstrous, her body contorting as she transformed before my eyes. Spider legs emerged from her back, her eyes gleamed with hunger. I tried to run, but it was too late. The webbing shot out from the trees, wrapping around my arms and legs, pulling me to the ground. I could feel the strands tightening, suffocating me as she moved closer. Her voice was soft, almost tender, as she whispered,
You are mine forever now.
That was the last thing I remember before everything went dark. If you're hearing this, it means someone found my recordings. But know this, the Jorogumo is real. And if you ever find yourself near Joran Falls, don't follow the woman in white. Because once she marks you, there's no escape.